Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Carlos Lemus Honey Processed El Salvador from Coyote Coffee. There's the cup right there. And on the other side, we have Carlos Honey. A Coyote based out of Kyoto, Japan. And I'm currently at the same spot we finished recording our Kurasu video, which is also nearby Coyote's Shimogi Award location. And they were originally a suggestion to us by Deb Always. So shout out to and thank you to Deb Always for the suggestion. This is not my first time trying this coffee roaster, as I was fortunate enough to cup their coffee at the SCAJ event just over a week ago. So I do have a little bit of familiarity with them. Now, some of the notes about the coffee shop itself. So all they currently have was 4 different El Salvadorian coffees with different processing methods, including a washed, a hybrid, I believe a natural, and then this honey processed coffee over here. So I did ask the barista for her suggestion, and she suggested this honey processed, as that's currently her favorite coffee. The one that intrigued me the most was the hybrid processed, and I actually tried a sample of it. That was a pretty interesting coffee. It also is the most my flavor profile sort of coffee. So that possibly would have been the one I would have gone with otherwise, but I am looking forward to discussing this one here today. And just like most of the other coffee shops we've been to, they had all 4 of those coffees available as a hand brew option. So this one was brewed with the V60, I believe. I'm not going to lie, I haven't been paying overly close attention to what dripper they are using in most of these coffee shops as I'm preparing a lot of these things for this video. But this one was yet another hand brewed coffee. And I don't think that they had any sort of drip offerings. But outside of that, roast profile, always a little bit more tricky to tell when it comes to more processed coffees. Even though this one is a honey processed coffee, it's not necessarily the lightest coffee that we've had on this trip. Again, it's kind of falling in line with the expectations. It's pretty similar actually in profile to the coffee that we did have from Kurasu. So hopefully that gives you an idea. Not necessarily an overly light coffee, but even then not overly developed either, still falling in the range of that sort of light medium profile. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee itself. And the first thing I noticed was that there is a little bit of fermentiness from the processing itself. That honey processing did yield a very strong flavor profile to it. And immediately I did notice a fair bit of those stronger stone fruit aspects. The lighting on this video might be terrible because the sun just came out. But yes, some more of those sweeter stone fruit aspects. This coffee was very sweet right from the onset, and easily one of the sweetest coffees we've reviewed in this entire series. Once again, it's one of the more processed coffees relative to a lot of the other coffees we've had, as the vast majority have been wash processed coffees. So this one right here, having a fair bit of that slightly fermenty quality, did take away from the overall clarity and experience of it. But I think they had an apricot note listed on here and then a strawberry note listed. Yes, both of those things are felt in very notable abundance, as there was such a strong fruit profile present within this one that it was definitely easily detected and notable right from the onset. But again, it was kind of marred a little bit by that fermenty aspect that was present within it. Didn't necessarily taste like the classic expectation you might have from an El Salvadorian Pacamara, Central American coffees in general, as it did offer much more of a robust as well as fruit-forward quality to it. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we're getting. And of course, got my notes right here, so let's take a look. And we have quite a few level 4s. We'll start with the finish, level 4. Yes, and I do have to say that this one probably has one of the most long-lasting finishes of any of the coffees we've had up to this point, as it does continue to linger with a lot of those fruit qualities in a little bit more heavy of a sense. So a little bit more of that fermenty aspect to them. And it's something that I've experienced in a lot of natural processed coffees. It reminds me a fair bit of a natural processed Ethiopian coffee, if I'm being completely honest, especially in terms of the berry quality and the stone fruit quality, both of which having that fermenting quality to them. Sweetness, level 4. Yes, higher side of level 4. Easily one of the sweetest coffees we've had up to this point. Neither of these things are overbearing, so that's why they didn't score any higher than that, but they both need to be noted at the higher side of that level 4 for having a fair bit of that. Acidity, level 4. Yes, I think I was kind of surprised by that, as there's a fair bit of brightness to this, and I think that's why all of these fruit qualities are going to score in the higher marks on this tasting wheel. And that's because there's plenty of fruit brightness right from the onset, and very noticeable and detectable from the onset on this one. Berry fruit, level 4. Yes, the strawberry note they have listed on here, yes, it's very Ethiopian-like. There are so many of those berry qualities to them. Not necessarily overly clean. Typically, when I see strawberry notes on a coffee, then I do expect it to have a little bit more of that fermenty quality to it. Classic, slightly fermenty strawberry component within this one. Citrus fruit, level 4. Yes, the only citric note they had on here was an orange tea, which I can kind of get in a certain aspect, but for me, it was a little bit more of a generic citrus, not necessarily an overly defined or sweeter citric aspect to it, but just a little bit more of that kind of generic citric brightness with not necessarily the best definition. Stone fruit, level 4, yes, and if I recall correctly, it was the apricot note that they had listed on here. Makes a lot of sense, much more of that sugary and robust stone fruit quality to it. Fair bit of fermentiness in that. Those things in both the strawberry as well as the stone fruit scents are very noticeable, and as a result, they score very high in these. I would say maybe both are on the higher side of level 4. Maybe the citrus is a little high. Maybe that's a true level 4, but a lot of these qualities in this cup are on the heavier side of things. Other things worth noting, we have a handful of level 3s. We will start with the caramel level 3. I toyed around between a 2 and a 3 on this one, but I said that there's just enough strength and sweetness to this that it can justify maybe the slightly higher side of those things. Lower side of level 3 for me, not necessarily an overly defined or caramelized aspect to the cup, but it's just a little bit more of a candied sweetness in general. Body level 3, yes, after having just consumed that Kurasu coffee, I definitely noticed a little bit more texture and body to this one. It's a slight bit more medium-bodied in general, giving it a little bit more depth in that sense. Cleanliness, level 3, yes, that's what we're here for. That's the big thing. And I've already mentioned that it acts a lot like modern natural processed Ethiopian coffees. So it doesn't have the greatest clarity. From the first try, I could definitely tell that it was going to be offering a little bit some more fermentiness and funkiness than the vast majority of coffees we've had up to this point. It's not too bad. Honestly, I thought about scoring it a level 4, but I said, most of the coffees we've scored at a level 4 have been notably cleaner than this, so it has to score at that level 3 mark. But as I am looking at this tasting wheel, I do think it's a pretty good representation of what I was getting from this coffee. All right, so my overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. I probably would have been a little bit more interested in trying that hybrid, as I've already mentioned. I probably would have enjoyed the wash processed coffee the most. But that's to say that this is still okay for a honey processed El Salvadorian coffee. That's typically not going to be my first choice when I go into a coffee shop. But I think it's nice to continue to branch out on the processing methods that we are reviewing in this series and some other origins, as we don't review a ton of El Salvadorian coffees on this channel. So some nice positives I do have to say is that it offered a lot of flavor, and that continues to be in line with what we've experienced from these Japanese coffee shops. Is very flavorful coffees. This one's very sweet, very flavorful, very nice and fruit forward profile to it. So a lot of positive things I have to say about it. The fermentiness and the lack of clarity is always going to hold this one back from being a coffee that I truly enjoy. I want all of my coffees to minimum score that level 4 in terms of clarity, so this one not necessarily having it isn't going to score overly well with me, but there were enough positives I could take away from this one that I would say it was just a pretty nice coffee, a little bit more of a flavorful coffee in a direction that I don't typically prefer. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. If you do like your natural processed Ethiopian coffees and you don't mind that slightly fermented quality to them, this is actually perfect for you because it offers a different and unique origin in that regard, while still giving you plenty of those natural Ethiopian-like characteristics, as well as a little bit more body and just some nice depth in general, as it offers tremendous sweetness right from the onset, a very long-lasting and lingering profile to it as well, especially in those fruits directions. So it will give you just a very flavorful cup right from the onset, and I think that's kind of the best way I can leave this review. If you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee, I'd love to know your thoughts and impressions of it as well, or anything from Coyote, as they're a coffee roaster that intrigues me, and I do hope that they might become a little bit more notable in the American coffee scene so I can try some more of their coffees. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Carlos Lemus Honey Processed El Salvador from Coyote Coffee. Thank you for watching.